Vince, you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go, baby. Rapid fire time.
I can't believe that we have gotten this far, and I have only seen one mention of RJ Oben in this whole thing. So tell me what you think, Vince. RJ Oben, defensive end from Duke, transferring to Notre Dame. How big is this for the Irish?
Oh, it's massive. They needed a defensive end, and they got one. And I'm excited about it. I feel like he was the number one guy that they targeted, and they ended up getting him, which is great. I watched a little bit of film of him this afternoon, and man, he is twitchy. Like this kid is twitchy off the line, and he's got some really good moves. And there were times in the Notre Dame game where he made Notre Dame's offensive tackle look not great. I'll just say that the right tackle specifically. And so I think this is going to be a great addition to Notre Dame. I think it's going to be right along the lines of Javonte Jean-Baptiste and what he was able to bring to the line. The only difference for me is I now have a higher expectation of this kid than I had of JJB before he did what he did. You know what I mean? So my expectations are higher, but I feel like the production will be similar.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Florida State wanted this guy, and they obviously saw him up close and, just like Notre Dame, I guess, did as well. But Florida State has seen him over the last few years. They know what he can do. And this is a sixth-year guy. And again, you look at RJ Oben and you look at Javonte Jean-Baptiste. I think Jean-Baptiste maybe looks a little bit thicker, but according to their rosters, they're exactly the same size. Both of them 6'4", 260 pounds. So you lose a 6'4", 260-pound defensive end in JJB, who is extremely productive, and you're going to drop another one in with a ton of experience, who has been a little bit more productive in his Duke career than Jean-Baptiste was in his career at Ohio State before he came to Notre Dame. And I just think that it spells out potentially really good things for the Irish, because you're going to, you're going to get a man in there. You're going to get, a guy with a developed body, strength, and the whole thing. And then, like you said, I think you're going to add some twitchiness that maybe you didn't have with Jean-Baptiste. But he had 64 pressures, Oben did, in 562 pass snaps over the last 2 years. Bryant had this. Isaiah Foskey had 65 pressures in 595 total pass snaps in his last 2 years at Notre Dame. So, like, you're looking at some similar production to what Isaiah Foskey had as well. So I think it's a really huge get for Notre Dame. And when you're going to be able to combine him with some of the youth that they have coming behind him, I think that's going to be really good for Notre Dame, not just this year, but for the next couple of years. And, again, it's like you look at the development that Al Washington was able to do with this defensive line this year, his second full year. And I think it bodes really well. You kind of sent some messages to some people that you can come to Notre Dame and still develop and do some really good things and give yourself, a lot of pro potential going forward.
And maybe this is nothing, but I'm going to say it anyway. Last year, about this time, Notre Dame went head-to-head with Florida State for a defensive lineman and lost. This year, they go head-to-head with Florida State for a defensive lineman, and they won. I wonder if they learned something the last time around. And look, Notre Dame has been incredibly successful getting the guys that they wanted in the transfer portal this time around, in this cycle. I think they learned a lot last year. And I think that they've applied that. And I think they are a group to be reckoned with moving forward on the recruiting trail, both for undergraduate guys and transfer portal guys. I mean, they have been incredibly successful with the transfer portal, man.
Absolutely. I mean, they have killed it in the transfer portal, honestly. And it's like, I think it was either right at the end of the season or before. I think it was right after the Stanford game when Marcus Freeman was asked about it. Look, if you wait until the portal opens to start evaluating guys, you're going to be too late. And they have obviously done a lot of advanced homework on these guys. They went into this knowing, almost like an NFL draft or NFL free agency type situation. They had guys targeted who they wanted, and they were able to move in quickly and get them on campus and show them the goods. And obviously a lot of guys already have come away pretty impressed. They came into before they got RJ Oben today. I think it was 24/7 that had the ranking. They had the third best portal class. And I'd be shocked if Oben didn't at least move him up to number 2, if not number 1 in this whole thing. I don't know what Deion's got going out there. He had the number 1 ranked recruiting class, but
hilarious.
He's obviously going bulk out there in Colorado. So.
Everybody, it's funny. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but like he went out and got all those offensive. I know they went out and got all those offensive linemen. The one kid was the number 1 offensive tackle in the 24 class. Cool. That's a great get. Right. The other 4 guys, like, I don't get it. Okay. The media is blowing it up like he just went out and got the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line to protect Shedeur Sanders out there in Colorado. That is not the case, folks. I'm sorry. Those other 4 guys are not world beaters. Maybe they're better than what they had, but man, is the media just taking that and running with it. Holy cow. We're going to get a whole other offseason of prime. It's like,
Fill in the blank. While announcing his NFL draft intentions, it's blank that Joe Alt says he'll go to El Paso to watch and support Notre Dame in the Sun Bowl.
Not surprising in any way, shape, or form. He's a team captain. He's a guy that, he's not playing in the bowl game, and I get it. You're a top 10 NFL draft pick, man. The last thing he needs is to get rolled up on in the Sun Bowl, okay? But he's going down there to support his teammates because guess what? His teammates understand why he's not playing in this game. And he's just like Michael Mayer was last year.
Right. And Isaiah Foskey.
Yep. They went down to the bowl game. They supported their guys. They were hyping up their guys on the sideline when they were being interviewed. That's exactly what Joe Alt's going to do, and I would expect nothing less.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that he's doing it. I don't know if I'd want a sideline full of guys, depending on how many opt-outs they end up with.
I get that.
In this whole thing. As we've talked about before, there are only 3 guys who I fully support being opt-outs for Notre Dame. Joe Alt is obviously at the top of the list because he's going to be a top 10 pick. Audric Estime is number 2 because he's a run. Now, he hasn't declared yet. We don't know specifically what he's going to do. We're assuming assuming he does. I would understand him, because he's a running back and he's got, of all the positions, the highest risk of injuries. And then number 3 is the guy who is probably the biggest injury concern because of his own injury history, and that's Cam Hart. Those are the only 3.
I agree.
Other than that, I don't think I want to sideline a guy standing down there in El Paso, like cheering him on, come on, Clapper, let's go. But Joe Alt would be at the top of the list, and I think it's pretty cool that it'll be down there.
Yes, those are the 3 guys that I completely agree with, that I have no problem with them sitting out. And those are the 3 guys of all the guys that are opting out that I would want on the sidelines of this game. Nobody else. Nobody else. Nobody else. Those are the 3 guys I want, So everybody else can be working on their pre-draft stuff at the time, or whatever else they're going to do. Those are the 3 guys I would want on the sidelines because I think that their love for Notre Dame is genuine, and I think that they are opting out for the right reasons.
Now, do you remember when J.D. Bertrand and a few teammates, when John Michael Bertrand, when they went to Knoxville, for baseball a couple years ago, and then they did like the road trip out to, remember they had like the little road trip cam and all that stuff. Now, if some of these guys wanted to do something like that, like if they were going to drive from South Bend to El Paso, get do your RV trip and all that kind of stuff, like we're always dreaming about, that. I would
happen.
I would like to see that video if, like a highlight of that, if something like, road trip, something like that happened, that I would be in on if they were going to do something like that.
Oh, I would too. And I think honestly, they'd probably be in on it too. The difference is they're probably going to be coming from California or Texas or someplace that they're doing their pre-draft stuff. But I wouldn't mind having them just be like a man on the streets kind of a thing, doing their thing with the cameras and all that stuff. It'd be fun.
Yeah. So with Alt and Blake Fisher both declaring for the draft and opting out of the bowl, scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence in Notre Dame's potential Sun Bowl offensive line now that we know for sure that both tackles are gone?
Is it lower than it would have been if both tackles were in? Yeah, it is. But I'm still fairly confident in what they're going to be able to do. I believe Oregon State has, some pretty decent numbers rushing the passer and things of that nature, and they're going to be tested and all of that. But I still think there's a ton of talent on the offensive side that will be able to combat that. So if it was scale of 1 to 10, it probably would have been like an 8.5, 9 if the tackles were there. So it probably drops down to like a 7.
That's pretty much where I am. There's talent there, but again, like other than Emil Wagner, who we saw, do some nice things, we really, we haven't seen too much otherwise. Like we haven't seen a whole lot of Tosh Baker, so like what's this going to look like? I don't know, but like I'm at least confident that they've got enough time. They've been practicing together because again, they've known all along who's in and who's out. So these guys have been practicing out there. Maybe we see a little depth chart shuffling. Who knows by the time it all rolls around next Tuesday? I guess we'll find out. But I feel at least a 7 because I mean this is not a bare cupboard by any means. It's just it's just an inexperienced cupboard that we're going to see with most of these guys out there.
Yep. And I haven't jumped into Oregon State either, so I'm not exactly sure what they're going to be going up against. To be honest with you, I'm waiting until school gets out. Then I'm going to start watching a little bit of film, watch a little Oregon State, see where they're at. Plus, you got to wait for all the dominoes to fall with these opt-outs and, all of these different things. And, Oregon State's playing with their third string quarterback and a different coach and all, and there's so many things.
I mean, they're going to be a little bit now. They've got a lot of the same staff around because they've promoted from within, and they're interim and all that different kind of stuff. But they're I don't want to say worse shape, but like in terms of their own opt outs and because of the coaching staff change and stuff like that, they're in an even little bit more precarious situation than Notre Dame going into this. And I think almost everyone in these mid to lower tier bowls are going to be in a lot of the same situations. You're going to see like almost completely, even South Carolina. You remember, like they had to shuffle some things around last year.
They had defensive linemen playing tight end.
Yeah, exactly.
But, it's funny because I still laugh at that was like the storyline was how many guys opted out for them, but nobody ever talked about the massive opt-outs that Notre Dame had as well. But whatever. Yeah, it's all good. No
Vince is still bitter. Vince is still Gator
I hold grudges. Bitter. I don't know if you're.
I know you do. I know you do.
Yeah.
I've known you long enough. So Shannon says over under Riley Leonard in 2024 throws more touchdowns and has more passing yards than Sam Hartman did in 2023. So we're saying, will Riley Leonard throw more touchdowns and have more passing yards than Sam Hartman? Is that the over under that we're looking at?
I guess. Yeah. If you add up Riley Leonard's passing and running, Riley Leonard's going to blow Sam Hartman out of the water.
He should.
When it comes to
because
yards.
He had 30, right? Was it 30 or was it 34 that he had 2 years ago total?
I think it was 30 total.
Or not 2 years ago, but in 2022.
I think it was 30. I think it was a nice round number.
I want to say it was like 20 passing and
I think it was 23 and
rushing
7
maybe.
What do you got? What do you got for me? 23-7?
I'll find it here. Hang on. So he had 20 touchdown passes.
Okay, it's 20 and 10.
And 13 touchdown runs. This is 2022. His full
33. Okay.
His full season. And he threw for 2,967 yards.
And he ran for 699.
Which would I mean, he threw last year for 300 more yards than Sam Hartman threw for this year, which shocks me. But he also had a bowl game. He had an extra game.
He did have a bowl game. And he also ran for 699 yards, so you can plop another 700 on there too.
I'm going to say no to the touchdown passes. I'll say yes to the passing yards. Over.
I think I tend to agree with that.
Like total touchdowns, it should be no problem having more.
Yes, total touchdowns and total yards, Riley Leonard's going to be over on both. Yeah, for sure.
I like that one, though. Good question.
Yeah, it is.
So Irish linebacker Jack Kiser announced that he'll be back at Notre Dame for his 6th season. How important is the return of Jack Kiser?
It's massively important. If you just look at it from an off the field standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, I think it's massive. I think your 2024 captain just came back. I honestly, that's how I feel this was. And so if you're telling me that a captain is going to be on the team that might not have been on the team, that's still huge. That's huge to have him back. He's going to be a leader of that defense. Now, is he going to get captain snaps? I don't think so. I think there's going to be a bit of a rotation. I think he's going to be the starter, but I think there's going to be a rotation, and there should be. And I think that would be an upfront conversation with Jack. But he brings way too much leadership to not bring him back if he wants to be here.
And look, Al Golden has said he likes the smart, experienced linebackers. And I mean, just look at, who got the bulk of the snaps this year, and don't come shooting at me right now, fans. Yeah. But that's what you're going to get with Kiser. So I think that his presence in that room, while I don't think he's going to get all the snaps, he's going to help bring along these other guys who are all very much less experienced than he is. And he's also going to be able to play multiple positions. So, like we were talking about, whether it's Snead at Rover or Ausberry at Will or whatever it happens to be. And even, if Drake Bowen is playing beside him at middle linebacker, just having Jack Kiser and all his experience out there, I think is going to be really invaluable for him. And I mean, again, going back to what we talked about before, the fact that he is the highest graded Notre Dame defensive player this year, and he played the fewest snaps, and now that can work both ways, because it obviously decreases your sample size. So it gives you, better chance for success and all that kind of stuff. But he still ended up with the 3rd most tackles and played the least snaps of the 3 veteran linebackers. So I think it's going to be huge for him.
And I think he's also going to understand his role too. I mean, I think it's going to be a well-defined, this is your role, Jack. This is what we need you here for. Yeah.
Yes. What? Is this a serious question? Hiking Engineer says, should Watts play wide receiver for the bowl game? And I get it. He's got wide receiver background, but he's the best defensive player. He won the award for the best defensive player in the nation. You have guys right now who are not healthy during the season, and they're all presumably, and again, we'll find out more on this. We'll get injury updates and stuff like that on Saturday. But assuming they're all healthy, you've got fully qualified wide receivers who are going to be able to play there. They're no worse off. I think you might have brought this up earlier this week, Vince. They're no worse off right now in this bowl game than they were last year in the Gator Bowl.
Correct.
Things worked out. I've got full confidence in the guys that they're going to put out there on the field who are already wide receivers for the bowl game.
Same amount of scholarship wide receivers in this bowl game that they had in the last bowl game. And last time I checked, there's been 2 100-yard receiver games in the last calendar year. One of them came in that bowl game. So they're going to be just fine.
Okay. Now, he's trying to say it was in jest, but he says since the bowl game is kind of like a scrimmage, we need to see young safeties. Would be fun to see him play both ways. If he's going to play in the bowl, he's going to play safety.
Correct. He's not his days of playing multiple positions are over. And he would be the first one to say, thank you.
We were just talking about Kiser. Do you think we see more of him or Ausberry at Will in the Sun Bowl?
That's a really good question. I mean, I know Jack pretty much knows all 3 linebacker positions. I think we see more Kiser and JD than we do the younger guys in the bowl. We'll see the younger guys, but not as much. Not as much as people are going to want them to be out there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see exactly where and when and situation and how, because I think that's especially for this game, they'll try to, since they're going to be much more shorthanded compared to who they had during the season. I think they're going to try to mix and match as best they can situationally, a little bit like they did with Snead in the Gator Bowl last year. They tried to find some situations that really played to his strengths the best. And he had a solid game. He missed a couple coverages, obviously, remember, in that game. But I think that's probably how they'll try to kind of piece things together a little bit.
Yep, absolutely. It'll be, yeah, it's going to be fun either way. I mean, you're going to see some young guys that you haven't seen play on both sides of the ball, but the defense is more intact than the offense is. Yeah. And so you're going to see a lot more younger guys playing offense than you are playing defense, right? Yeah. We haven't had any opt-outs defensively, right? Up to this point. Am I wrong?
Just Leofow.
Leofow. See, I already forgot.
I mean, we're kind of assuming that Bertrand is, even though we haven't got any official.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to opt out. I really don't. I have nobody telling me that or whatever. I just don't think he's going to opt out. I think he's a guy that's going to play because he already accepted his invitation to either the Senior Bowl or the East-West Shrine Bowl. I forget which one, but he's going to play in a postseason bowl, right? And so he's already going to be playing and putting his health on the line. I just don't see him opting out. That's just not something that he's going to do. I just don't see it.
I agree. This is a question Vince was pondering when we were off air the other day. New Irish quarterback Riley Leonard and incoming freshman quarterback CJ Carr, they're both number 13. So, Vince, who's going to get 13 at Notre Dame?
I mean, look, I'm sure that the Notre Dame coaching staff told CJ Carr he was going to get 13. And we're going to have a chance next week to see CJ Carr doing his thing.
He's supposed to be here. Let me see. Today is the 13th. He's supposed to be here as of Saturday. I think
the 16th
is what I saw.
So yeah. I bet this is his last week of school for high school, and then he's done. He's going to come and immediately come to Notre Dame. And so I'm interested to see what number he's wearing, Sean. But no, if it comes right down to it, yeah, you give it to Riley Leonard. He's only going to be here for a year. CJ Carr can wear whatever. He'll get it
matter.
He'll get it next year.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree with that.
You can tell him, hey, whoever starts gets 13. How about that?
Good call. I mean, that's probably the way to go, right?
And I don't think CJ Carr would have a problem giving it up for a year either. So I would assume that Riley Leonard, but I'm obsessed with like numbers and stuff. Like that's just my thing. And like so much so that when I was the head coach for freshman football, I gave the kids their numbers. I didn't even let them choose because I like certain numbers at certain positions and things like that.
Dictator.
Right. Well, I gave your son 5. Linebacker 5.
He liked it. And then he switched to 25. Made 25 his baseball and football.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Yep.
You look good in 5 though, Stiers. I'm just saying.
I liked it. And he ate it up because it was Manti Te'o back then.
Middle linebacker.
Manti.
See?
That's right.
Yep.
We are ND for life. What's Notre Dame's roster size? How many more must leave? I think I saw like 88, 89.
89, according to the scholarship chart on irishbreakdown.com. And I know that is accurate because RJ Oben is on there. Okay. So it is definitely up to date as of today. And they're at 89. So you still got to see some more guys go. And if they're going to bring in transfer kicker potentially, right? I think that's one that they need to add yet. Is that it? Is that safety? I think
kicker, offensive lineman, maybe a safety, possibly another wide receiver.
So 3 to 4. Yeah. So you're looking at probably another 10 guys that need to make some sort of a
and don't forget, you don't have to be at that number until the actual game next year.
Yes.
So you've got all of spring and all of training camp to get all that sorted out.
Yeah, plenty of time, and it always sorts itself out. And we know there's still guys opting out at this point, right? We know that that's happening, and so that number is going to get down, no problem. And look, Notre Dame may be active in the spring portal too, from a exiting standpoint and an addition standpoint. You never know.
Mike wants to know why the Notre Dame women are ranked 14th. Am I missing something? Here's my theory on this, Mike, because they played on national TV in the middle of the afternoon in Paris against South Carolina, and they obviously lost by a lot to South Carolina. But my theory is because so many people watched that game and saw how lopsided it was, that has made it hard for them to recover. I think they were down as far as 18th or 19th, and they've kind of worked their way back up. They've won 7 in a row. And the other part of that is the win at Tennessee a couple of weeks ago is the only, ranked team that they have had since then to kind of, try to prove themselves. Now, it was a road game. They came back. They won that game against a solid ranked Tennessee team, not a great Tennessee team, but a solid Tennessee team. So I think that combination of things, the fact that they lost the way they did on national TV and they just haven't had the quality game other than Tennessee to really kind of show themselves. And there have been some other teams that have kept winning in the meantime. It should actually work for Notre Dame that South Carolina has pretty much obliterated almost everybody since then, but
seriously,
it hasn't worked in Notre Dame's favor. But look, once conference play comes, they're going to get plenty of chances because there are a lot of ranked teams in the ACC. So it'll work itself out.
And Notre Dame's been dealing with some injuries and some things like that. Yeah. Like there's been some games where they've had a very few amount of ladies dressed for the game.
Yeah.
And you can speak more to that detail wise, but like it just feels like there's been a lot of injuries. Not season-ending ones or anything, but like nagging things that are just keeping people out.
Yeah, but that's going to work in their favor, I think, ultimately, as well as they start to get some of them back. Kassam Prosper was out a couple of games. Emma Risch was out as well. Nothing serious with either one of them. Citron was the most serious, but again, based on what we've been told, we're expecting to see her back potentially by the end of this month. So
shockingly great news to me.
I know.
I was obviously anticipating the absolute worst. I mean, I just was. So that's great news.
I know. We Are ND for Life also wants to know how many players we think Notre Dame lands from the portal.
How many are they up to right now? Because we got to give them a total.
Yeah, so let me see. It's
2
wide receivers, a quarterback, a defensive back, and a defensive end. That's it right now, right? 5?
Yes. 5.
So
yep.
I think
5.
they potentially it's going to end up being 7 or 8, I think.
Yeah. I think that's about right. Yeah. 7, 8,
maybe,
9.
Maybe even 9 because of the kicker. Yeah.
7, 8, 9. I think 9. So, yeah. Yep.
So Jim Harbaugh is still reportedly working on a contract extension with Michigan. Do you think that he's actually going to be back at Michigan next season? One of the holdups in this whole thing is supposedly, like Michigan wants some kind of clause, where like you're not getting, like certain guaranteed money unless we put in an NFL clause, that kind of thing. And that's apparently kind of been the holdup is an NFL clause for Harbaugh. Do you think he's actually going to be back? Do you think he's going to be in the NFL?
I don't think he's going to be back. I feel this feels very Pete Carroll-ish to me, where he knows the writing is on the wall and the NCAA is on his tail and it's about to hit the fan. And I just feel like he's going to get out of Dodge before all of that happens. That's my gut. I don't think he's going to be back next year at all. I think he's out. I do.
Like that Carolina job potentially, that owner is nuts, like how many, like he goes through head coaches like you go through cheeseburgers, man.
You're not
it's
wrong.
Like it's a very rapid pace.
Double fist, baby.
That's right. It's like I think if Harbaugh gets an NFL opportunity, he's leaving. That's what I think. I mean, he's flirted with it the last couple of years. He has obviously wanted it, but there hasn't been the reciprocal interest. I do think he would like to get out, and there are going to be a lot of openings. And like, look at his track record. He still has it between Stanford, the 49ers, and Michigan. He's got a strong track record of turning things around that were not good before he got there. So, you love him or hate him, I think there are a lot worse coaches that you could have in the NFL than Jim Harbaugh.
Michael Park says San Diego. I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Going out to California again.
It's where his coaching career began.
Had success, obviously. He played there too, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he?
I believe he did.
I think he did. Anyway, I could see that being the case. I really could. And they're the LA Chargers, by the way. Not the
no, that's
Diego
true.
Chargers.
It's not San Diego anymore.
But he put San Diego, and it made me think of that. But anyway, yeah, I think he's out, and I think he's going to take the first job that's available because he can't be too finicky. Because I don't think he goes back to Michigan. I think he needs a golden parachute someplace.
Yeah, but look, like again, there's talk about Parcells maybe being on the way, or not Parcells, Belichick being on the way.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, there's talk about Belichick maybe being on the way out in New England, and that's again like an organization that has been the model organization for 2+ decades, but it is not right now. And like that would be, I could see that as a potential spot, where Harbaugh could land and really try to, stabilize things again and kind of put his stamp on things.
Oh yeah. I could see him in a lot of different places. Unfortunately, it's not Michigan, or fortunately, I don't know how you want to.
I think he was really hoping that Eberflus would, kind of fumble this whole thing and have an opportunity there.
See, Harbaugh messed up 2 years ago when he didn't take the Bears job as far as that part is concerned. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he could have made a run at that job, but I think he was being a little bit too picky about certain things. And then, because he knew he had the soft landing spot back with Michigan. So, yeah.
TD4ND, you have a good one yourself. Thanks for being here tonight. We're close to wrapping up here.
Yeah, I've just got a text. Just got a text from the wife. I've got tacos sitting at my place upstairs.
Oh man, that sounds pretty good. Okay, so let's get through these real quick. Right. Michael says December 20th, Notre Dame quarterbacks on campus will be CJ Carr, Tyler Buckner, Drew Pine, Kenny Minchie, Steve Angeli, Sam Hartman, and Riley Leonard. We have enough camp arms for individual receivers.
That's hilarious. By the way,
no kidding.
That is actually really, really funny. The only I'll just bone pick with you here. Sam Hartman and Riley Leonard will not be on campus on December 20th. Neither one of them will be there. But other than that,
that's true. Yeah. Well, Hartman could be theoretically, but
school's over this week, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's gonna bolt. He's gonna bolt and start preparing for the draft. I don't think he's gonna be there. I think he's out.
Yeah. I think you're probably right, but
yeah, but either way, it's a hilarious.
He could be hanging out. Maybe he wants to go to a couple basketball games before.
This is a great statement by Michael, though. This is hilarious. I know. I mean, what is it? 1, 2, 3.
We started the show talking about how Buckner and Pine are going to be back this spring, and neither one of them playing football.
Right. And you've still got Dylan DeViesen. He'll be there because he's a walk-on, right? So that actually makes 8 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That are going to be on campus potentially all on the same day. So that's fantastic.
It's nuts. David Carpenter, as a Cowboys fan, I have to ask, how good does it feel to even up the Eagles series the way they did Sunday night? Spectacular. Revel in the glory right now. It is fantastic because at least for 5 minutes, Eagles fans can shut their trap. Jesse, I just, like these guys, man, come on. They act like they invented the NFC East and they invented football. It's like, still, you have to go back. I think it's like 12 or 13 years since the Eagles actually swept the Cowboys in a season, but they acted like it happened every year. So I'm pretty happy about it. It's good to at least share the lead in the division right now, even though because of the schedules, I don't think it's going to last. Quinn, thanks for the super chat. I did see the question that you just asked. It's a little bit complicated. I don't know exactly how to answer it. So he said he asked before the season what Hartman's WAR was. You both agreed on 2.5. I feel he at least got 1 Duke. And what will Leonard's WAR be? Win above replacement.
Well, I think we can all agree that it was probably like a 1.5, what it ended up being, right? I mean, he did win the Duke game, so you got to give him that one. He played well in the USC game, although that was probably more defensive than anything else. So maybe I give him a 2, 1.5 to 2. But yeah, it wasn't 2.5. I agree with you on that one, Quinn. What will Leonard's be? Here's the thing. It's going to be about a 1.5 to 2 in that neighborhood because looking at that schedule, as I said earlier on in the show, I think that the younger quarterbacks could get Notre Dame to a top 12, 11 ranking and get into the playoff. I think Riley Leonard gives you the opportunity to be better than that. And so 10-2 gets you into the playoff, I think. Okay. And so Riley Leonard,
it at least has you on the bubble because
you're in the conversation.
Depend on who's in front of you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's say 2 losses is you're in. Let's just, for argument's sake, right? So what does Riley Leonard give you? Does he give you 11 wins? Does he give you 12? So in my opinion, it's either 1 to 2. So 1.5.
I'll just split the difference and go 1.5.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at.
No, I think you're right, because again, when you look at what's on the schedule this year and like what's Louisville going to be next year? And that's, somebody brought it up the other day, because of the transfer portal. I think it is so hard to project right now what everyone's even going to look like next year. I mean, look at Florida State. They're going to lose a quarterback. I would imagine, they're going after a portal quarterback themselves right now, and they're going to have to restock. And as of right, like if you're just going based off right now, that's one of the toughest games that Notre Dame should have next year, but that could easily change. So I think you're right. I think I said the other day, like, having Riley Leonard doesn't guarantee that you're going to run the table and you're automatically going to win the toughest games on your schedule, but it's going to give you a much better chance to win those games, especially when you are going on the road to open the season into an environment like Texas A&M and against the guy, coach that he coached against and all that, or played for and all that. It's going to give you a better chance than if you're going in with a completely inexperienced quarterback next year. He's going to give you a much better chance in those games.
I do like having it, as we are ND for life says. I think Leonard gets us Texas A&M and Florida State, and I think that's a safe. I tend to agree with that, to be honest with you. You got Texas A&M on the road, obviously, but he's going to be seeing a defense that he's very familiar with, because it's going to be Mike Elko's defense, folks. So he's going to see a defense he's very familiar with, and Florida State's at home. And so I like Notre Dame's chances against Florida State at home with a new quarterback, whoever that happens to be.
TJ wants to know, any chance we come to New York for the MetLife or Yankee Stadium game next year? Some good ND lore here in New York. It's cool that there'll be a two-game local team next year.
Well, Sean Stiers, if we can get the RV thing set up, we're going to NYC. I've never been to New York, ever.
New York is actually... When they played in the Pinstripe Bowl, Jesse and I drove to New York for that game, and it was an easier drive than I thought it was going to be.
Well, because you're used to driving to Kansas, though, so you've got those driving genes.
That's true. If you had to be the passenger, you would be fidgeting over there. You wouldn't know what to do with yourself the whole way.
True.
I'd be here. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? So bored. Find another podcast to listen to.
How come you're not entertaining me, Sean Stiers? Come on.
I have thought about this, though. Like, it would be fun if we could, and we need to, this is probably something in the off season that we need to start talking to Brian about, is like, if we could we need to figure out the logistics of like maybe taking the show out live once in a while to some different places.
Absolutely. Because we can go to Purdue. Like, I think that would be fun because that's an easy drive, obviously.
Yeah.
There's different places that we could go potentially and take this sucker on the road, baby.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. David also wants to know, Vince, as a twin dad, your greatest piece of advice. He says his boys just turned 16.
Ooh.
What advice are you giving on twin dads?
Man, advice is tough because I have twin daughters who are 14, but I have a singular son who is 16, obviously. So he's ahead of the game for me. You're ahead of me in the whole twin department as far as like the age thing. Having twins, folks, is one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to do because everything is double. The tantrums, the diapers, the doctor bills, everything.
That's true.
It's all double.
Yeah.
I could tell stories, man. It just all double. But having twins, the biggest piece of advice I would give you, and he knows this because he's got 16-year-olds. First of all, they hate being called twins. You got to treat them like individuals. They hate being called the twins. Like I'm Ella, I'm Lil. They want to be called. They want to be treated as individuals. And now that we're getting into high school, starting to play in high school, they're kind of going off in their own directions, like the electives they want to take and the different things they want to do. So it's all about the individualism, man. That's what I would say. Treat them like individuals.
Good point. Tommy says you got to experience NYC at least once. He says that as someone who's been there a dozen times and he hates the city. And I will say, like, I enjoyed, like, once you get, like, into into New York City and all that, and like you're, into the hotel. Now you've got to, pay out the, rear, to park your car and all that kind of stuff. You never bring your car out once you get there until you leave again. But I actually did think it was kind of cool to like walk out of the hotel, walk down, the street. And we went to, like to Times Square and all that kind of stuff, and like hop on the subway and take the subway to and from the game. I thought that, that was actually kind of cool, kind of the hustle and bustle of the city. I didn't mind it. I actually kind of liked it a little bit more than I thought that I would.
Yeah, I'm not a big city guy, but I do want to experience New York City at some point. Like I would love to go to like a Broadway show, like just do like the New York City stuff. Like my wife really wants to go to like the Today Show and, like wave in the background, that kind of crap. Like I want to do the touristy stuff. Like
we went by 30 Rock and it was amazing. Like how it's always amazing how small it all looks.
I bet
when you're there compared to TV.
Because it looks huge. It looks massive on TV, and all I know is I could never live in a big city. Those of you that do it peace be with you. I couldn't do it, man. I did it for a semester and it was overwhelming. I just didn't like it.
I will say like driving in there, was different than, driving, because like, when you're, like I have a tendency, like if the light is turning yellow, I'm going to roll through the intersection and, but I tried that and, thinking that the traffic in front of me would keep going. And then I end up blocking the intersection, sitting on a crosswalk. And that's just all kinds of trouble right there. So can't quite drive the same in the city as you do in good old Indiana or the Midwest. We are ND for Life wants to know if I think the Cowboys are going to end up playing in Brazil. And that was something that was talked about today, that the NFL might add a game in Brazil. Jerry Jones says he doesn't want to give up any home games for these international games, and I don't blame him, considering the capacity that AT&T has. So, like if it's a what would be a road opponent, I can see it happening. But Jerry Jones has got a lot of pull. Jerry tends to get what he wants because of all the money that he's made the NFL and the other NFL owners over the years. So, I don't think they're going to give up a home game to do it, but I can see it if it ends up being, again, like somebody else's home game that ends up rolling down there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although they supposedly added this 17th game as, like that's with the idea that more games are going to become international games. So I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I think that's going to do it for tonight. We rolled for a while.
All right.
This evening. Vince has got tacos brewing.
Man. Yep. Hey, and everybody out there in Irish Breakdown Land, send some positive thoughts to my firstborn. We got a big ranking camp coming up on Saturday.
All right. Do it, Dylan.
Whoa, come on. Daddy needs a scholarship. Let's go. Come on.
All right. Hit the like button if you would. As David Carpenter said, too many people viewing to not hit the like button. So hit the like button before you leave. And of course, on your podcast platforms, you know what to do. Subscribe, rate, and review. And we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.